If you're thinking of becoming a house sitter, you're probably wondering what the pros and cons are. I'm a full-time house sitter in Sydney, Australia, and I've completed over 170 house sits in the last 7 years. So in this video, I'm going to run through all the advantages and the disadvantages that you can expect from house sitting. I'm Lisa from Australian travel and migration blog dreamingofdownunder.com. I've got lots and lots of guides for house sitters and homeowners who want to use house sitters on my blog, so head over to dreamingofdownunder.com and just click on the house sitting section on the menu to browse through them all. I've got links below to my favourite house sitting sites. That includes ones that are great for travelling and ones where you can get paid for house sitting in Australia. I've also got a 20% discount link for trusted house sitters, which operates in 130 countries, and it's a really popular site. It's got lots of perks that most other sites don't have, like house sit cancellation insurance for both sitters and owners, and home and contents protection for owners, and 24/7 free calls with vets. I've also got a free instructions template that you can print off, so if you're an owner you can fill this in with your house sitter's instructions, or if you're a sitter you can give this to the owner, and there's also a free house sitting email course included, so you'll get a sequence of emails with all my top advice for becoming a house sitter and not getting exploited. Okay, let's get into the pros and cons. Advantage number one is a very obvious one, and that's getting free accommodation. So actually, people tend to assume that house sitters don't have their own home, but there are generally three types of house sitters. You've got people who are travelling and they're saving a lot of money, particularly in expensive countries like Australia. Hotels cost at least $100 a night usually, so if you are travelling and you can house sit, it can really save you a fortune. You've also got people house sitting in their local area, which is what I do because I live in Sydney. And if you want a house sit without having your own home, obviously that's going to save you your rent or mortgage payments as well as your bills. You've also got house sitters who get paid and run it as a business, and they might have their own home. So most people doing that would have their own home, but they might offer pet care services for a fee. So if you're in one of the first two categories, then you can save thousands of dollars on rent and bills. I've saved around $70,000 in the last few years on rent, so it's been a really big saving for me. Advantage number two is to pursue your dreams. So if you don't have that big rent payment coming out and you maybe want to leave your job, whether that's for travelling or just staying in your local area and having less outgoings, you could possibly house sit and either do part-time work or fund yourself for a while if you want to maybe start a business or write a book, or just experience living in a city that would ordinarily be too expensive. Somewhere like Sydney, one of the most expensive places in the world. You can come and stay in luxury properties a lot of the time and not pay any rent and focus on whatever you want to do. Advantage number three, and I think this is a very appealing one for a lot of people, is getting to stay in luxury properties. So not all house sits are in luxury properties, but generally it tends to be family homes that are a reasonable size. I find people living in smaller apartments are a lot less likely to have pets, so generally house sitting is obviously for the purpose of looking after pets in most countries. So I find it's families in quite nice sized homes. I've had unbelievable properties in Sydney. I've overlooked Sydney Harbour, like a window right with the water beneath. I've had mansions like up hilltops overlooking harbours and rivers and the ocean. I've had like absolute beachfront properties. I've had my own steam room, my own sauna, jacuzzis, heated swimming pools. Yeah, I could go on and on, but yeah, I've lots of lots of luxury properties in Sydney. It probably depends where in the world you're house sitting and if there's a good proportion of rich people basically, but there's lots of jobs out there. Number four, if you are a traveller and you've been on a road trip, maybe you've been camping, that's what I did in Australia. I did a big road trip and then I house sat in the major cities when I got to them, is the opportunity to clean out your car and your camping stuff. Doesn't sound very exciting, but when you've been on the road in a tent for weeks and weeks, particularly somewhere like dusty like Australia, when you're off the sealed roads, everything's going to be filthy, your stuff's going to be full of leaves and twigs and dirt. It's so nice just to get everything out, hose the tent down, put it on a washing line, clean all your camping gear, clean all your plates and everything properly, just give the car a vacuum, give the car a free wash if you've got a drive and a hose pipe, all the exciting things. Number five, if you're house sitting in your local area and you're not travelling, if you don't own your own home, you don't have to bother with all the maintenance, whether that's time or cost. You don't have to do the gardening or decorating or fix any problems. All of that stuff is up to the homeowner. So the most you might have to do really is water some plants in terms of home maintenance and put the bins out and bring the mail in. That's really it. So pro number 6 is having animal company. So in Australia, house sitting is pretty much always for the purpose of looking after people's pets while they're on holiday. In some countries, maybe there are house sitters where there's not pet care, but in Australia, that's pretty much what it is. I've never seen house sits that don't have pets. So you really do need to be a pet lover if you want to be a house sitter. Yeah, you get to spend time with fun pets, cute pets, sometimes naughty pets, but they're usually pretty good and a lot of fun. It's nice just to have that kind of company, or if you have pets at home and you're traveling and you miss them and you can't have them because of your nomadic lifestyle, really, really nice to spend some time with cute cats and dogs or whatever else you might be end up house sitting. Number 7 is meeting local people and getting a more local experience than you would get if you were in a hotel in a tourist area. So if you're traveling particularly, you'll probably get to the house sit before the owners leave and meet them. They might show you around, they might show you all the local sites. When I was traveling, homeowners took us out for dinner and that kind of thing. It was really good fun, and it was just nice to get to see a bit more of what it might really be like living somewhere rather than just being in the tourist areas or the city centre. So when I moved to Sydney, Sydney's absolutely huge and I had no idea of, the layout or what the different regions were like, and I house sat all over Sydney from top to bottom, so I really, really got to know the city well and found like my dream place to live, basically. Number 8, this is probably one you won't be expecting, and it's probably more for people who are running a business. So I used to house sit for free for travel accommodation, and then I started doing paid house sitting once I kind of settled in Australia, in Sydney. That's really, really in demand. So I ended up basically building a pet care business where I do dog walking and cat feeding, and like at the moment I'm just getting paid by the hour to look after some dogs in the daytime because the owners don't like leaving them. They had to go out for a long time. So and what I found was you meet so many different people and like mostly nice people, but not always. So I had to really, really learn to kind of set boundaries and not let people kind of take advantage, because with house sitting it's not like walking a dog for half an hour and then you're done. You're in the house all the time, and you've also got the kind of emotional element of the pet, so people can sometimes kind of expect too much of you. So it really, really taught me to kind of stand up for myself and like set limits and just have a totally different attitude really, and not get walked all over. Okay, let's get into the disadvantages of house sitting. There are quite a lot, and some of them you just might not really think of if you haven't done it before. So number 1 is last minute cancellations. This is a big problem for house sitters and house owners. So people do unfortunately cancel. I mean, normally if you've got a house sit planned, people book you, but then it might be that their holiday plans aren't firm, or they haven't actually set the dates yet, and some people won't tell you this, unfortunately. So when you're a house sitter, obviously you can only take one house sit at a time, and if another like house sit offer comes in and it even clashes with one day, you have to turn that down. So when you take a house sit, you're stuck with that house sit, and if they cancel last minute, it's very hard to get another house sit in a short amount of time. So it really is a pain, and I just occasionally had people who would, one lady used to book me for 3 weeks at a time and she would just want a weekend in that time, and she would just sort of ask me to block it out and not tell me that she wasn't going away for that whole time. And most people will see that that's really wrong, and it is a small minority, but unfortunately some people just will not care, even if you have nowhere to live, or if you're housing for money and that's your only income. So that is a big problem. What I've found with doing the paid house sitting is that when people book you, they pay up front to the website, and the website then release that to the sitter at the end of the job. So when people are paying for it, they are much less likely to cancel, and if people hold off paying, that always means that they might want to cancel. So it's a lot easier to manage. That's why Trusted House Sitters is good, because they've got that house sit cancellation, which I haven't seen anywhere else. And also for homeowners, obviously, if their sitter cancels last minute, they've got to either put their pets into kennels or a cattery or find another house sitter. So I do get quite a few people contacting me last minute saying my sitter's dropped out, I don't know what to do. And that could be awful. They could potentially have to cancel a holiday they've had booked for a long time. So unfortunately, that is a problem. Disadvantage number 2 is moving house frequently. So every house sitter will have like different idea of what they'll accept. So some house sitters who are long-term travelers and they're living nomadically, they might be open to lots of locations or even lots of countries, and they might only accept house sits that are a month long, but because they're kind of open to such a wide area, they've got more of a choice. So they might get a house sit for a month and then kind of get flights to that country or whatever. Whereas I find if you want to do it in a set region, so I only do it in Sydney, it does narrow down your choices a bit, so you might end up having to take shorter ones, and even if you do get long ones, you've got to fill the gaps between them, so it can be a bit of a pain. So now I house sit just in one region of Sydney, and I get lots of business because I've been doing it for years. But yeah, occasionally I just have like a few weeks that I can't fill, or I had 1 month last year where I just couldn't get anything for the month, and then I ended up having, I think, 5 really short sits in a month, and so I had to move house 11 times in 1 month. That's very unusual, but it does occasionally happen. Disadvantage number 3 is the amount of time it takes to move house. I think this is something that people really don't think about until they've actually done house sitting. You don't just turn up with one little bag. I mean, maybe if you're a backpacker, you might only have a backpack and maybe some bags of food, but for anyone doing this locally, you're going to have a lot of luggage. So I've got 2 kind of small suitcases, toiletry bag, like big toiletries. You can't house sit full time with travel bottles of stuff, it's going to run out all the time. All my food, so big, like 2 bags of pantry food normally, a big bag of cold food as well. I set up an office, I have a monitor, a laptop and everything, and it really does take a lot of time, and particularly when you're moving out of a house and you want to leave it clean. I always leave the house clean, so I might have moved furniture when I'm setting up the office or something. I might have used a different chair, I had to unplug things and that kind of thing, so I always try and put everything back where I found it, and I take photos if I do move anything so I can remember. But it can take a really long time, and that's why I switched to paid house sitting, because when I worked out the time it took me to move in and out, as well as you have to go to the house and attend a meet and greet if you're in the local area. So I was driving all over Sydney. Sometimes it would take me 4 hours to do a meet and greet because I'd have to drive for ages in traffic or get public transport. So it's really a lot of time. So if you can get those long house sits, that is much better. Also, moving house is quite physical. You're literally like cleaning, packing, carrying. I have about 4 loads that I take to the car. There might be stairs. I might not be able to park outside the house if it's a busy road. It's hot in Sydney in the summer, so sometimes I'm carrying all these cases and things up and down stairs in 30 degrees. It's really quite tiring. Disadvantage number 4 is living out of a suitcase. If you're traveling anyway, obviously that's not really a disadvantage because you're going to be living out of a suitcase or backpack, and it might even be better because you can take all your clothes out and put them somewhere, which you couldn't really do in a hostel. But if you're house sitting in your local area, living out of a suitcase and living out of your car instead of having, you know, a wardrobe and a chest of drawers and all that, it's such a big difference. So first of all, your clothes are going to be creased a lot of the time, so I pretty much live in non-creasable clothes like denim and jumpers and things. So I've got a little dog come to see me. Hello, you want to be in the video? Oh, you're good. You're good. So creased clothes and not being able to have many possessions, so you can't have all your things with you. Obviously I have like a tiny bag of jewelry, very small bags of nail varnishes, that kind of stuff. Not too much makeup, not too much clothes, and not too much food. I can't really buy all of the pantry items that I'd like to keep because I've got to ferry them in and out of cars and carry them everywhere. So it really does put limitations on what you can own, which might be an advantage for some people, but it does, I find it gets a little bit tiring after a while. Disadvantage number 5 is badly behaved, not pets, but house owners. So with house sitting, it's not a regulated industry where there are kind of laws on what you can and can't do. So there's not really any limits to what you might be asked for. There's a dog trying to hold my hand. Hello. And also there's no kind of time limit on the jobs you're doing unless you set that, so you do have to be really strict. So it's not just people asking for too much, it's also people like maybe messaging you through the websites and then disappearing and not getting back to you, or as I said, cancellations. I had one lady when I used to do unpaid house sitting. I got to the meet and greet that we'd arranged and nobody answered the door, and I waited about half an hour and she didn't come, and I went home. And then I got a message the next day saying that she got drunk and passed out. I've had all sorts. I've had people not being out of bed yet when I've come to do the meet and greet and they've asked me around, and just not answering the door for ages, and just things that take your time when you're not paid for that time, like turning up to a house sit and it's dirty and you have to spend an hour cleaning because it's disgusting, which you're just not paid to do. People shoving baskets of wet laundry at me as they're leaving. I mean, you're not meant to be doing people's laundry. Just a lot of kind of extra jobs that people give you that they shouldn't be giving you. Basically, it's a bit of a pain. So it is really important to set a limit on how much work you'll do, including how much dog walking. I had one, this is really rare, most people are fair and quite normal. I had one house sit right in the beginning in a really posh place, and they there was so much work just for the animals. There was a dog, they wanted me to walk the dog 3 times a day, and the dog was to choose the length of the walk and the route. So I was basically told to like follow him and let him do what he wanted, which I didn't do. I was like, we're not going down this street because it's going to add an hour on. And then they had some rescue birds, and I had to chop the food up ready. They had people that were paid to come around and do the cages and stuff. They had big aviaries, but it took absolutely ages, and it was really hard. I had to like cut through raw corn, like corn on the cob, and it was almost impossible to cut through, and it took about 4 hours, I think, just to do like the dog walking and the food. And on top of that, this is unbelievable, they wanted me to babysit their grandchild, not for pay, I don't think. They basically just saw me as like a 24-hour butler. It was absolutely disgraceful. And after that house sit, I didn't do the babysitting. I said no. I worked out the amount of work that I'd done, because they also wanted 2 really long meet and greets to go through everything, and it was quite far away, so it was a long drive. I worked out that I did, like taking off the rent that I'd saved, I did something like 4 or 5 grand's worth of unpaid work just in 3 weeks, which is absolutely ridiculous. So you have to be really careful and not just assume, oh, I'm house sitting, it's free rent, like it's worth anything, because it's not. You've got to think like, how much am I saving? How much work is that? What am I happy to do? I mean, if it's short term, it might be like it's a luxury property and you don't mind doing a bit more for the experience. But if you're house sitting long term, you can't kind of use up your working day to do free labour for people. So you have to be really careful about that. Number 8 is badly behaved pets. Yeah, most pets are pretty good, but obviously you're gonna get some terrors now and then. Not just badly behaved pets, but like ones that make noise in the night. Maybe they snore or they want to go out in the night. So I now say on my profile, no pets that make any noise at night, because it takes me ages to get back to sleep if I get woken up. And if I have to wake up before 6 a.m, I just won't get back to sleep at all. So it really shocked me how many people would ask a house sitter to sleep in a bed with the pets, and the pets were just noisy all night. I had some awful sits where I got maybe 3 or 4 hours sleep a night for 3 weeks, because you can't, if the pet's used to being in a room with the owner at night, you can try shutting them out, but a cat will just scratch the door and throw itself at the door. Dog will bark. I once lay in bed for 3 hours hoping a dog would stop barking, and then just had to let her in. She just jumped up and down off the bed all night. So that was a really big bugbear for me. And then obviously naughty pets. I mean, puppies will chew stuff. I've had all sorts of things chewed, shoes, belongings, stealing your things and taking it out into the garden. So now I pretty much don't leave anything on the floor where pets can get to them. I always close my bedroom door, or I keep my case in like a second bedroom if they've got one, and just close the door so that no pets can get into anything. Cats as well, like young cats particularly, will chew wires and things. Big dogs can jump up and get your food off the worktop. So obviously in someone else's home, the pantries are usually full. Maybe 2% of owners will clear a shelf in the pantry for you. So if you've got big dogs that will steal food, that can be a real pain. I've even put it so far back, like behind a microwave, and a dog has still managed to get the bag and eaten raw pasta and chewed a Tupperware and run off with a potato. I've had to chase puppies around trying to get like potatoes back. Yeah, they can be really naughty. Going to the toilet in the house is more common than you might think, not even just for young dogs. I've had houses where the pets just aren't toilet trained. Some people live in apartments with small dogs, and like some of them have like the puppy mats and stuff, but they just don't use them. They just live with like big piles of wheel over the floor. It's unbelievable. Yeah, so you will have some disgusting things like that. One dog weed in my bed, and I didn't know until I'd got in it. Sometimes cats will get quite moody. Their owners have left them, and they'll just poo on the floor instead of in the litter tray. So there's all sorts of surprises that you can expect from pet sitting. Disadvantage number 7 is the restrictions on your lifestyle. So mainly the amount of time that you can spend outside of the house. So if dogs can't get outside to the toilet, then you might not be able to leave them for more than, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 hours. Some people are longer, some people aren't. Cats are pretty low maintenance. I mean, you generally just need to feed them. But with dogs, you might need to spend a bit more time at home. So you can't really go off on a big day trip that would take 8 to 10 hours. You can't just nip away for the night. You can't just, you know, go out to parties till 2 a.m. Well, you could, I suppose. But so it really needs to be that you don't mind. You don't have to be at home all day at all. You're not receiving enough kind of payment for that. But yeah, you can't just have total freedom in terms of going out. You'll need to like walk the dogs and feed them at certain times, possibly. Some pets have medication that need at certain times. So it does definitely have quite a big restriction on your lifestyle. Disadvantage number 8 is the isolation. So if you're traveling and want to make lots of friends, then house sitting probably isn't the best idea. It's very different to staying in a hostel or something. You are just in usually kind of a family area, residential area. I mean, if you don't really care about that or you want a break from communal living, it's very nice. If you're traveling with a friend or a partner, then obviously it's going to be fine. But it can be a bit isolating, particularly if you're moving all the time. I mean, I live in Sydney, but for the first few years I sort of moved all over the place, so it was almost impossible to make friends like in a certain area. Okay, so overall, is house sitting worth it? I would say yes. I definitely don't think it's for everyone, particularly the nomadic kind of lifestyle. I've got dogs all over me here. Sorry if I'm moving about a lot. So I've saved tens of thousands of dollars. You do have to remember that you are spending time working for that. So you're walking dogs, you're moving house, you're not just kind of appearing in a house and doing nothing. So is it worth house sitting overall? What do you think? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think you guys make it worthwhile? Yeah, I think you do. They're in the garden, finding treats that are scattered everywhere. Okay, is house sitting worth it? Definitely not for everyone, but if you don't mind that kind of nomadic lifestyle and you like exploring and you like animals, then yes, it's definitely worth it. For me, exploring Sydney was really exciting. It's so diverse and huge, and I got to stay in all these really different kind of areas, from high-rise areas to beach areas. I've stayed in national parks where I'm just overlooking a forest and a river. Yeah, really, really amazing getting to meet all kinds of different people from different countries, all the pets. I've really enjoyed it. There've been some bad ones and times when I've sworn I'll never do it again because the owners annoyed me so much. But overall, I definitely think it's worth it, particularly if you want to travel. It's such a huge saving and you can explore different countries and expensive cities and things. And for me, doing the paid house sitting, I ended up starting my own business. So now I earn pretty much a full-time wage from doing all the various pet jobs I do. You'll find as well, once you've built up reviews on one site, you will get a lot more business. As long as you've got good reviews, you'll be a lot more attractive to homeowners. So if you want to start house sitting, I've got guides that walk you through exactly how to do it, how to go through the process, how to write your profile and that kind of thing. So take a look on my blog, or I've got another video on how to become a house sitter, so you can watch that one. And don't forget to check out my links below to the house sitting websites and get your discount. Okay, that's it for my pros and cons of house sitting. Let me know in the comments if you've got any more advantages or disadvantages to add. I've probably missed some, I'm sure. And let me know if you're a house sitter or you're thinking of starting. Okay, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe for more videos on life and travel in Australia. Disadvantages: dogs everywhere. Dogs kissing you when you're doing a video. All right, don't compete. Don't compete. I love you both. I love you both the same. I love you both the same. It's not a competition. You want to sit on the floor? You want to not both be on top of me? Oh no!